this is the design I made for my window in my hall, and this is Illustrator. And what I did was select a 2mm line and draw all these lines in by following a template which is underneath. Now the template is an image I downloaded from the internet of a representation of what scientists think a wormhole looks like. And a wormhole is something akin to a black hole, except I think the idea of a wormhole is you can go through and out the other side, and it sucks all light into it, and it's often represented with this matrix sort of drawing down into infinity. And one of the reasons I decided to do this as a design is because I've always been fascinated by images of space. That's number one. I did a lovely window for a church that was based on the images taken by the Hubble telescope, because the brief was to do something about creation, because the church was called St. John the Evangelist, and at the beginning of his gospel he talks about the beginning of creation. Anyway, I digress. Now the other reason this design really suited my purposes is because I made the window from offcuts from a job I'd done, where I had made all the glass myself. That's to say, I took clear glass and I coloured the surface with powdered frit, which is powdered glass, and then you fire it in your kiln and the coloured glass frit fuses to the surface of the clear glass. So it took me weeks to make all this glass, and I've got some beautiful offcuts. But because they're offcuts, I was restricted in terms of the size of pieces I could use it, in a design. So there weren't any large pieces, so I had to come up with a design using small pieces, and this seemed ideal. I have to say it was slightly daunting when I came to the end of the design, because I did know how difficult this was going to be to lead and to make and to cut. But I think if you've seen the finished product, you'll agree it was well worth it. I think it looks stunning. I was very happy with it, and I think it also goes quite nicely in the hall. There are a lot of my light boxes in the hall, but there's also quite an ordinary door between the front section of my hall and the back section, which we use to keep the house warmer, and that just had squares in, very simple coloured squares. So with this being basically a matrix, I thought it was all quite sympathetic. So that's a bit of background to the design that I then made for the window I cut into the side of my house. So there's lots of videos you can see of how we went about that, and I hope you'll find them interesting. I'll show you the way I coloured this on another program called Sketchbook. So I copied across my basic matrix of lines, which looked like that, and I then used the airbrush tool to add colour. Now what I wasn't sure about was whether I was going to have it starting red and fading to yellow in the middle, or starting with yellow at the edge and fading to red in the middle. So I mocked it up both ways. So this is red fading to yellow, and this is yellow fading to red, and that helped me make my decision. And that's what these drawing packages are great for, because if you're going to do this by hand, it will take you a long time to do this. You couldn't just flip-flop between designs. I can do as many different mock-ups as I like, and it really doesn't take long at all. So having decided this is how I was going to do it, I think you can see that it is very similar to the finished product. I printed this out, took it with me over to my workshop, so I had a visual reference. It's got a great number of brush tools you can use. Let me get them up for you. Brush library, there we are. So there they are, lots and lots of them. So there's pretty much every brush tool you could need. So you don't need to import a leaded design into this package. You can just draw, and I would strongly recommend using your graphics tablet, because that's what these programs, these sketching programs, are designed for. And then you can draw in a very naturalistic way. My favourite is the airbrush tools, because they let you fill in the colour in a very naturalistic way, which is quite sympathetic to glass. There's all sorts of brush tools with pointy ends and flat ends and sort of, you know, angled ends. Same with the pens, all sorts of different pens for filling in. There's soft brushes, hard brushes. There's textured infills. There's pencils. See, pencils here. I mean, it goes on, and you can make custom brushes, which is great. So sometimes I might draw, for example, a leaf, and I might turn the leaf into a brush, so that then when I dab with my stylus, every time I dab I get a leaf, and by changing the angle of my stylus I change the angle of the leaf. So if I'm doing a design where I've got a lot of the same object, it's a great shortcut. So you can customize, you know, if I want to do stalks, that's great. I can do a brush which has got a dark lead line on the outside and there's green in the middle, and everywhere I draw it, it does the work for me. So that's obviously getting more complex, because you can, mostly for your purposes, these would be enough. So I hope you found that interesting and useful. Thank you for watching. Lots of other videos in this series of how I put a window into the side of my house where there wasn't even a hole. So I hope you find it informative, get something out of it, and please like, comment and subscribe. Thank you.